Hi everyone, long time no see. I just released a new short course on melody and theme writing. Check out the description box below for information on that, including the intro price. In this video, I want to discuss something that I spend a lot of time talking about in that course, the basic idea. It's a term I first heard when reading William Kaplan's book on classical form. The basic idea is the smallest structural unit of melodic material in classical phrase structure. According to Kaplan, it's small enough to be grouped with other ideas to form larger phrases, but large enough to be broken down into fragments. So, as an example, here's a two-measure basic idea in a classical style. Basic ideas in the classical period were most often two measures in duration. Kaplan refers to the melodic identity of a basic idea as being characteristic through diversity of intervallic content, i.e., leaps versus stepwise motion, and its motivic, melodic, and rhythmic nature. I like to use the word striking, something that stands out to the listener. Not all classical melodic material is or should be motivic and or striking. Sometimes the goal is simply to let the music flow lyrically from one measure to the next. For example, I think that this 2.5 measure idea would be a poor basic idea according to Kaplan, as there is nothing particularly striking from a melodic or rhythmic standpoint. But I could imagine that a moment like this would be effective later on in a classical piece, just maybe not as an opening motivic idea. It's almost entirely stepwise, the note values are all the same, and the melodic contour is a bit meandering. This idea on the left, on the other hand, has a clearer sense of melodic direction with a mix of leaps and stepwise motion and a more interesting rhythmic structure. In another video after this, I'll discuss how to piece together small units of melodic material like this basic idea on the left into longer phrases and melodies. Does this approach to building melodies using small units of material work for non-classical era music as well? Well, there are certainly other ways to think about melodic writing, but for those at home watching this who may be teaching yourself how to write music without much formal training, this approach can be really effective. There are plenty of examples of film or TV or video game themes that can also be deconstructed into small units of melodic material. And it all starts with the basic idea. In my new course, I spend the most time discussing what you can do compositionally, even in just two measures, to make an idea more effectively portray a specific emotion or expressive character. So, for instance, I could start with this basic idea. Now, emotions and expressive characters are somewhat subjective and a personal thing. To me, this has a slight calming presence, the perfect fourth interval expanding to a major sixth. Somehow it simultaneously feels stable yet unresolved. From here, I could make a few changes, perhaps some melodically, some rhythmically, and some harmonically, to steer it in a different emotional direction. By subtly adding suspension and ornamentation, the basic idea takes on a slightly different sound. The type of change and, of course, the degree to which you change something will affect its resemblance to the original. Changing some of the harmonic inner voices with chromaticism affects the character without changing the actual melodic line. Changing the actual top melodic voice notes will have a more pronounced effect. I've flattened the E natural to E flat and subtly adjusted the melodic contour and inner voice part. When making these sorts of chromatic adjustments, the single most important thing is the intervallic content between voices. So in this case, the E flat and G in B2 of the first measure, a minor sixth interval, so still very consonant. But now the total pitch content takes us outside of the diatonic collection, which gives it a unique sound and perhaps contributes to a specific emotion. I think less peaceful or less calming than the original, but still not overly dark or menacing. Making changes to the bass line can significantly impact the expressive quality. Because the original idea featured the dominant scale degree in the lowest voice, there was a somewhat unresolved quality to the sound. In this version, however, the melodic line is nearly the same, but the lower register part looks different with the tonic D pedal in the bass. This gives the basic idea now a more grounded sound, and of course, because of the lower register of chord tones, a warmer sound as well. The tension created now in beat 2 of each measure creates contrast with the stability of beat 1. This alternating tension and stability is one of the most effective ways to portray romance in music. And taking this a step further, now there's chromatic tension in both the top melodic line and the bass line. One consequence is that it no longer resembles the original line with all of the harmonic and melodic adjustments. But even with all of these chromatic adjustments, I've looked at every vertical interval formed in every beat so that I have complete control over the chord voicing and the degree of dissonance. And one last demonstration here, register, and the register positioning of notes will of course affect the character and expressive quality of an idea. Even simply moving this idea up an octave gives it a lighter sound. I've also made melodic and harmonic adjustments, borrowing chords from the D Dorian collection. Up yet another octave from there, and we start to get more of a delicate and tender emotion. Of course, in piano it sounds a certain way, in other instruments it'll sound different, but regardless of instrumentation, the upper treble register of notes will contribute to a lighter, more delicate sound at soft dynamics, or a brighter and even piercing timbre at loud dynamics. And of course, the reverse of this is true. If I move this idea down an octave from the original, I can achieve a heavier and darker sound. My instinct is to also play this a bit slower, as if the weight of the notes needs more time to sound. Hopefully, you can see in just 2 measures I can capture a very specific emotion. In the next video, I'll talk about expanding these ideas into 4 and 8 measures. I'm not going into nearly as much detail as I do in my new course, so if you find this video helpful, do check out my melody and theme writing short course. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.